Hello, and welcome back to the Corruptive Chaos channel. I'm your host, Corbin, and today we'll be talking about The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, starring Nic Cage.
What's the worry here, Nick? You've lost some of your talent as an actor?
No. What did he say?
He says he loves you, but he went in a different direction.
So if I were to start off with a side note, I would say that this isn't hyperbolic, this isn't an exaggeration, but I would say Nic Cage is probably my favorite actor of all time. So while his track record of choosing roles in the last decade or so hasn't been great, to say the least, I will say that, you know, any role that I see him in, he always brings his eccentric, weird behavior to it. Even if it's some low-budget VOD release, I can have a lot of fun with it. And so with that, I would say that thinking about favorite Nic Cage films, I was thinking about that while watching this because there are so many Cage references strewn throughout. And I think my favorite film he's in is probably Wild at Heart from 1990, directed by David Lynch, who is also probably my favorite filmmaker. So that mixture really makes a perfect collaboration in my mind.
Hello.
Is Lula there?
Who is this?
Sailor Ripley? Can I, talk to Lula?
So going off that, I would say that thinking about his career in the last decade or so, like I mentioned, it is usually relegated to VOD, video on demand releases, or he does get small, limited, usually shorter, limited theatrical runs for his films. A big example would be my favorite film of 2021, last year, was actually Pig, which he starred in the summer. Once again, that was released by a small studio, and it had a pretty small theatrical run. I was very happy to see it in the theater.
I'm looking for a truffle pig. Someone stole her.
I don't understand.
So it is just nice seeing Nic Cage in what is probably a fairly big budgeted film. This is a Lionsgate action sort of thriller that is being widely released to many theaters across the nation. I mean, just going back to his career, looking back on it, you see the late 90s, that's when he was this big action star where he would be a leading man in these wide releases that got a lot of box office attention. Films like Con Air or Face Off or Gone in 60 Seconds, that sort of era of Nic Cage, that's when he was this action star. Even though I said his last decade or so hasn't been all that great, I do think there are some diamonds in the rough. I think recent examples would be Mandy from 2019. I just mentioned Pig from just last year, which was phenomenal. And even Color Out of Space, which I believe was released in 2020 on VOD. So that just goes to show that Cage does still have that ability to bring these really weird performances and commit to them to his fullest extent. Anyways, moving on to the substance of Massive Talent. This, of course, is mostly led by the gimmick in marketing and what is known by it, as Nic Cage is playing himself in this film, at least a fictionalized version of himself. Not only that, he is also playing a sort of second hallucinatory role as a Nic Cage version that his character envisions that kind of bullies him. That character was also the only instance of really weird VFX. They did de-age Cage, where he looks like maybe like a weird Frankenstein-looking Nic Cage from like the mid-90s or so. And I suppose that hallucinatory character was supposed to be Cage's character's id, his subconscious talking back to him, always putting him down and bullying him, like I said. So the meta moments of the film come about with its commentary on the real-life Nic Cage in a way, because he is desperate for a breakout role. He is tired of getting these offers that don't go anywhere. One funny moment early on in the film comes about when he's trying to get a role with the director being attached as David Gordon Green, who is playing himself in the film. Of course, David Gordon Green recently has directed the past 2 Halloween films. He, of course, was once a director of comedy, or still is, depending on how you receive the new Halloween films. In that moment where he's trying to get that role, he talks in a weird Irish Boston accent, and that's a really good sign early on, and where the sort of tone and comedy is going to come from with the mixture of the meta aspects on Cage's career. Also, the 2 versions of himself, I wanted to mention that was reminiscent of another Cage film where he plays 2 characters talking back to himself, which is adaptation. Because of his spending habits that they comment on as well, he really is kind of desperate for anything, not even a movie role, but his manager gets an offer from this random rich man to appear at his birthday party. That character, of course, is Javi, played by Pedro Pascal, who has kind of been a recent movie star himself, of course. He was in Wonder Woman 1984 as the antagonist, and I did think he was really hamming it up in that. I think this is a film that is a fairly boilerplate plot about a spy thriller / action film. There's a bunch of thrills throughout, but I think it's all there to hide beneath it, sort of this buddy movie. That is what is front and center. The friendship between this fictionalized real-world Nic Cage and Pedro Pascal's character as Javi, who is this super fanboy of Nic Cage.
We got another offer. It's $1 million. It's to attend a wealthy gentleman's birthday party.
The guy that owns this house, what's his name?
Javi. Mr. Cage.
Excuse me, is Javi going to want me to,
I'm not sure I understand.
Look, it's Javi.
I am Javi.
Nic Cage.
Personally, Javi does kind of act how I would imagine I would act. Would I have the chance to meet Nic Cage, and just the memorabilia that he has that references film throughout, Nic Cage's filmography throughout, is really fantastic to see as a fan who has seen many Cage films.
Is it too much? Is this supposed to be me? It's grotesque. I'll give you 20,000 for it.
Do I think that the gimmick is able to sort of transcend itself and be more than just a reason to watch this as an actor playing themselves in this fictionalized world? I do think so. I think the comedy makes it worth it. As seen in trailers, he is sort of hired to infiltrate this Javi character's compound and figure out what's going on behind the scenes.
Can you just stop stalling and answer the question? What is your 3rd favorite movie of all time?
Paddington 2.
What?
So we do get a spy thriller aspect in there, but like I said, at the end of the day, their friendship is really strong when it is shown on screen. A lot of the screen time is dedicated to just those 2 characters talking about cinema and movies together and really enjoying each other's company. Which brings me to the next point, which is that the supporting characters definitely take a back seat in this. Nic Cage has this fictional family. He's having familial problems with his daughter and ex-wife. And during those sort of melodramatic moments, the film's pace does halt pretty noticeably. But does it take up too much time? I would say no. It's just sort of another layer to add on to this fictional Cage's life story. So all in all, I do think that this is definitely Nic Cage and Pedro Pascal's film, and everyone else is kind of on the sidelines. I think the only thing that made me fairly cautious was the fact that this is being released by Lionsgate. They've had a kind of iffy track record to me on the things that they distribute, especially when it comes to action films, which they've kind of found their niche for. They, of course, are probably best known, the studio, for releasing the John Wick films, but a big worry was about the visual effects, but I'm here to say that the film looks pretty great. It's not groundbreaking in cinematography or anything like that. It's shot fairly flatly, but, I don't think it needed this over-the-top style. It is more about the acting on screen and the friendship shown at the main point of the narrative. I do think the only sort of shoddy VFX work was the de-aging of Nic Cage. I think they could have handled that maybe a little better. considering it was sort of a hallucination of the character Nic Cage seeing a younger version of himself. In the end, as a Nic Cage fan, I think if you have seen a lot of his films, you're definitely going to get a lot more mileage out of this and appreciate the references that are thrown in and the talk about cinema that the characters do have. So, personally, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. I do think this was a very comedic sort of action film that did feel like a throwback to earlier Cage performances in his heyday of being a leading man. It is just great to see him back on the big screen in a wide release, and I hope that means that other studios, writers, producers, directors, what have you, will try and get him to lead their films in the future. So thanks for watching, everyone. If you made it this far, I'd appreciate a subscribe, a like, or a comment saying what is your favorite Nic Cage film. Let me know down below.
I'm Nick Friggin!